Today's topic is poetry. I'm sure I will make multiple videos on poetry, but something that I love about the craft of poetry and lyricism is just this ability to capture, to like so beautifully put into words something that you or we or I experienced or witness. I think there's something about being present, like ever since I was little, right? Like there would be these moments or these times where I would like just being in the moment. Like I remember sitting on a dock, staring over Lake Erie and just feeling everything, or like you can just like feel everything, like you're so present in the moment and whatever was happening or whatever's happening around you, the sights, the smells, and it's this, part of it is this desire to just like capture that almost like a photograph, right? And put it into words, or to be able to help somebody else understand, to give that experience or share that experience with somebody else, right? So to help connect someone to that, right? To create this sense of like connection and belonging, and um like something shared, like creating something shared. And then, and also just like these, like when there are difficult emotions or things where something that I always struggled with was figuring out how to articulate what I was feeling. Like I would just cry, right? Like, especially when I was younger, like it was hard to put into words what was affecting me in one way or another, because it wasn't, people would be like, what's wrong? And it's like, there's nothing wrong. I just feel. I'm just emoting, right? And I don't know how to describe that to you. And so poetry sort of entered as a mechanism for this. And there's, you know, when I look at the artists and the poets that have inspired me and that I look up to and who just like fascinate me on so many levels, it's their ability to tell a story, to capture a feeling or an emotion or an experience, especially when it's really vulnerable, and express it in such a powerful way, right? Or to just create an experience. I think like right now, top of mind, like the people that come to mind are, or the artists that I think about a lot are, Vessel from Sleep Token, because his like, I am in love with his brain. Like it's just the the way he crafts his lyrics and like his art. It's just something that fascinates me because there's so much. It's so juicy, right? There's so much to sort of dive into and explore and to feel and experience, and it's just this like really beautiful like mastery of his art. I think Florence Welch is another person who is able to create really interesting and dynamic lyrics and compositions that, again, it's especially like like feminine rage, or just like the experience of just owning who you are despite it all, you know what I mean, like that kind of a thing. And having an opinion, you know what I mean, like having a point of view. I think she's able to do that in such a wonderful, masterful way, while still sort of, like it's this like emotive, like transcendental experience sometimes when you listen to her work. Hosier is another one whose lyrics just like, they're just so beautiful. The metaphors, the concepts, like this. I was just listening to the song in the car, but the song In a Week, where it's a love song about two corpses who are rotting in a field together. It's just like, I love that kind of shit, right? Like that kind of like dark, moody, or this ability to make something that people would like initially look at and go, ew, that's so gross, like, or that's so morbid, or whatever, like have this like harsh judgment, or almost like this discomfort with, and to turn it into something so beautiful that you're like, you have people who would normally not engage with it, just obsessed with it or singing about it or singing along, just like in that sharing in that experience with you. So that's one of the aspects of poetry that I think is really um transformative, and like fundamental is the word that's coming to me. Like it's just it like that's the point, right? Is to be able, or for me, I think it's that magic of being able to take something and make it beautiful, like, and make art with it, make it beautiful, even if it's not something that is conventionally viewed as beautiful, right? Or to create this like accessibility of experience that might not otherwise exist through words and sound. um so I love that. And I think there's so much to the art that's so like historical. And um I think when I think about how I got into poetry, I don't even know. I remember being obsessed with E. E. Cummings because I loved how playful he was with structure and form and word order and grammar. Like I just loved how he played with the rules and played with form and how we read words on a page in a way that created really interesting and dynamic poems and commentary and expressions, right? This like idea that um, there's no wrong way to express yourself. And I think, and then I went through a huge Nikki Giovanni phase. I love her. I feel like I learned a lot through reading her poetry, and her words. And again, I think that's another piece, right? Like she at different points in her life, right? When I was sort of reading more of her, like this was when I was back in like the early 2000s, right? So like the stuff that was pre that. And so just her ability to express, again, experience, to express a point of view in a way that, allowed me to like form this empathic understanding, or to question things, right? Or to question stories or narratives that maybe I was, sold, that kind of a thing. And so, and especially through the lens of, an experience that I will never have, like I will never be a Black woman, especially not a Black woman who grew up, at the time that she did, and especially not a Black woman now, right? Like all of these things. So there's aspects of those, of her experience and her perspective and how she navigates the world and how the world was responding to her, and in her community and things like that, where it's just, again, there's all of these really interesting and impactful ways that engaging with art, engaging with poetry, engaging with points of view is so powerful. And then, oh fuck, I meant to look this up before. I want to say it's Mahmoud Darwish, but I feel like that's wrong. I feel like for whatever reason, I feel like I'm getting his name wrong. But just his collection is one that I really respond to, because again, there's like, I think part of what I find amazing about poetry, and especially those who have like reached a level of expression, if not mastery, where they can talk about an experience that is unique to them, or that is not shared by everybody, right? Like being like living in exile is not an experience that everybody will have in their lifetime. And many people may never even know somebody who does live in X. Like, there's a distance there. And yet, when I like many of the poems that I've read from people like, I'm just gonna say Darwish because I don't want to say the wrong name, but and there are some other poets that I'm sure, and authors who have experienced exile, who write really amazing things. And so there's aspects of their experience that I will never, well, we'll never say never in this day and age, right? But that I in reading them, or at the time that I read them, I have no real personal frame of reference for. But I know grief, I know longing, I know the I know that feeling of wanting, like, yearning for something that cannot be for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And the context is different, the experience, like how we get to that emotion is different, but that emotion is there. And so through their art, like they're able to tap into that feeling. And so I can then connect with and relate to them, because that is the entry point, right? It's not that I know this feeling, so therefore I know their experience. It's I'm able to engage with their experience and be open to understanding it, and holding space for it, and receiving it, and listening to it, right? And whatever it is that they're asking in their expression, whether it's just engagement or listening or witnessing, whatever it is, right? I'm able to do that because I can enter through this feeling, right? This point of connection, this point of vulnerability, right? To feel, to be able to sense and experience any and all emotions, especially ones that are not linked to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? To that survival instinct. And even sometimes those, right? Like anger or rage or whatever it is. But having that point of vulnerability opens the door to connection. It opens the door to understanding. It opens the door to receptivity and to exchange, right? Because at the end of the day, no one will ever know what it's like to be me. I will never know what it's like to be anybody other than me, right? And all of the things that come with that. And so I think, like, having that point of acceptance where, if I'm craving for someone to witness me or to understand me, it's not about them having the same experiences or living the same life. It creates more opportunities for that entry point, right? It makes it easier for me to find that doorway to connect with somebody. The more things we have in common, the more doors we have, in common, right? Or gateways, or however you want to call them. But it's about, creating a threshold, right? Like creating a space, an invitation for people to engage with an emotion, an experience, a place, a sound, a smell, a relationship, or an inner, like a thought process, right? An environment, a context, and offering that as as like a framework, as an invitation, right? For people to connect and cross that threshold into your world and get a glimpse of it. You know what I mean? And so that, like, this is art does this, and I got I like art. I love all art. Like, art is amazing, and this is I don't know how anybody. I don't think we ever have lived without art, to be honest with you. I think that's, regardless of what evidence we have from prehistoric cultures, regardless of, how speculative it is to, talk about how our most ancient ancestors experienced the world when there's no way for us to really know, right? I just think art is so critical to the human experience and to our way of connecting, and especially across language, especially across experiences, and these sort of like the limitations of being tied to a body, like to one body and one mind, and like one vehicle through which we can experience the world, right? That we have, especially when we have very little control over, where we come into being, right? Like where I was born, the family I was born into, all of those things, that happened, and now I'm here, right? Like, it's I didn't necessarily choose or know or was consciously aware of how and when and where and who and what and all of the details of what it would mean to be incarnate. You know what I mean? And so there's this, like, but this is the only way I can experience incarnation in this lifetime, right? So having different mediums to engage the senses, right? To engage the senses, and I think our emotions are a sense, right? Our feel, like how we feel is sensual, right? It's a sensory experience. So whether that's the like the 5 physical senses or the more subtle body senses of, perception and emotion and like thought or cognition, like these different ways of sensing things that we have a physical reaction to, right? Like we have a somatic response to anger. We have a somatic response to joy, to ecstasy, to elation, to sorrow, to grief. We feel that in our bodies in different ways. And being able to navigate those and bring awareness to those and facilitate a way of experiencing any of those emotions, to me, is a beautiful thing, period. And also is, what am I trying to say? It's beautiful, and it's needed. I would say it's needed. It's something that, we sometimes need help tapping into feelings that are either, intimidating or scary, or unfamiliar, right? And so that we just, don't have as much experience with. And so having a way of being exposed to those sensations, to having a way of feeling them that is safe, right? That isn't so immediate and or so attached to like our direct experience, right? Where it's when we view it through the lens of art, or when we experience it through the lens or the pathway of art, it creates some of that, that distance that we need, or that like that separation that allows us to play with a feeling, right? To experiment with it in a setting and in an environment that has, minimal consequences, right? Or minimal negative consequences by playing or experimenting with this feeling, right? And there's more to get into. That leads me to a whole other thing, but I've reached my time limit. So that's my 20-minute musing on why poetry is important. So, till next time.